The year that I celebrated my 5th birthday, I spent that summer in South Carolina with my Aunt Tilda, a little place called Chulaway, South Carolina. I spent that whole summer in that place with my Aunt Tilda. And it was a very interesting summer. There was nothing boring about that summer that I spent with Aunt Tilda. No, there was nothing boring at all about that summer. It was a very nice summer. And while I was down there in South Carolina, my aunt did something that most people never do. She killed a man. I'm not kidding. My aunt killed a man. And I never did realize it until many years later. It was many years later that I realized what had happened, because I was so young and so innocent. I don't know why I went to Chulaway, South Carolina that year to be with my Aunt Tilda. I don't know if it was her idea or whether my mom and dad sent me down there. I don't know, but I went. And like I said, I had a good time. I remember my Uncle George drove me down there. Oh, good old Uncle George. Boy, do I remember him. He was a swell guy. My Uncle George. He's the one that drove me to Chulaway, South Carolina that summer that I was 5 years old. I remember Uncle George had a red car. It was a pretty big red car. And he loved that car. It wasn't brand new, but it was his. It was his car. He loved it. And Uncle George drove me to Chulaway, South Carolina in that car. I remember we left one Friday evening. Oh, I'll never forget that. We left one Friday evening. We hit the highway, and boy, Uncle George was driving fast. He did about 80, 85 miles an hour all the way down to South Carolina. That was the speed limit in those days. You could drive that fast. Ooh, and Uncle George was a good driver. So my Uncle George drove me to Chulaway, South Carolina. I never will forget that. And he was also the one that came back and got me 3 months later at the end of summer. But yeah, I remember that. I remember that very well. When I got to Chulaway and got settled in, one of the things I realized was that my Aunt Tilda was a very popular woman. Even being a little 5-year-old boy, I could see that, because Aunt Tilda had people coming and going at her house all the time. Men, women, older men, older women, young men, young women. She was a very popular person, my Aunt Tilda. And I got to know a lot of the people. Of course, I don't remember their names now or anything. I forgot their names as soon as they told me, most of them, but they thought I was such a swell little kid, and they all used to talk with me and laugh and play with me and everything. And like I said, it was a nice time. It was a very nice time. Yeah, I found out that my Aunt Tilda was a very popular woman in Chulaway, South Carolina. And I remember she and I would sit out on the porch and talk, and she would make ice cream. Oh, she made that good old homemade vanilla ice cream, and she and I would eat big bowls of ice cream, and we would talk about things, and she always talked about things that I could understand, because like I said, I was just 5 years old. So she always talked about things that I could understand, and she would always ask questions like, Henry, what do you want for Christmas? And I would tell her. She said, all right, we'll see about getting you that. I didn't know if I would get it or not, but it was fun talking with her. She would say, Henry, where do you want to go someday? And I didn't know any place to go. Like I said, I just had a 5-year-old mind. I didn't know any place I wanted to go. I said, I don't know, Aunt Tilda. I suppose I want to go back home when it's time. She said, all right. So that's where you'll go when it's time. But meanwhile, you're going to be right here with me, and you're going to enjoy yourself, right? I said, you better believe it. And I did. Oh, man, did I ever. I had a wonderful summer there. There were other kids around for me to play with. Oh yeah, I had fun down there in Chulaway that summer. And I remember my Aunt Tilda had a boyfriend. His name was Mr. Walburn. Oh, he was a very dapper guy, very handsome. He used to come by a lot. And he took a liking to me. Yeah, Mr. Walburn took a liking to me. And of all things, he used to take me fishing. And boy, I had never been fishing before. I enjoyed that. Used to take me to movies in Chulaway. I enjoyed that. He loved baseball. He would take me to baseball games. Oh, Mr. Walburn and I got along real well. That was my Aunt Tilda's boyfriend. So he was one person that I never had forgotten, Mr. Walburn. Yeah, we had a great time. We had a great time in that good old town of Chulaway, South Carolina. Oh, indeed we did. And I noticed that at night when I would go to bed, well, Aunt Tilda and her company would always, seem like they were having a party every night. She would always have so many people. I don't know, I guess 8 or 9 or 10 people every night. Seemed like they would come and stay almost all night. They're just good times, you know. They play cards, they drink, watch television, do a talk. Oh, it was just a party atmosphere all the time. Like I said, people loved my Aunt Tilda. And sometimes I would get out of bed and I would walk to the top of the stairs and look down just to see what was going on. And, you know, I could see that. I said, boy, these people are having themselves a good old time. Yeah, my Aunt Tilda's place was a very popular place there in Chulaway, South Carolina. But I remember one night the house was very quiet. And I didn't hear any noise for a while. But then I began to hear loud voices. It was a man's voice and my Aunt Tilda's voice. And it was downstairs. And they were really talking real loud and they sounded angry at each other. So I got out of bed and I tiptoed to the top of the stairs and I looked down and my Aunt Tilda and some man, they were standing in the middle of the floor and boy, they were really just going at each other. I mean, they were just yelling and talking and going on. And I saw my Aunt Tilda pick up something and she hit the man in the chest. And he just crumbled and fell to the floor. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen. And at that moment I spoke up. I said, Aunt Tilda, what's the matter? And ooh, the look that Aunt Tilda gave me when she looked up and saw me at the top of the stairs. She said, Henry, you go back to bed now. Said, my company and I were just talking. She said, now you go back to bed. We didn't mean to disturb you. I said, what's wrong, Aunt Tilda? Is something wrong? She said, oh, no, we're just playing a game. I said, yeah. She said, yeah. Said, Henry, now you go on back to bed. So my company and I were just playing a game. He's all right. He's just pretending to be hurt. So you go on back to bed. I said, okay, Aunt Tilda. I mean, like I said, I'm 5 years old, got an innocent mind. Whatever my aunt says is true, to me, that's true. So I went on back to bed. But it wasn't too long after I'd gotten back in bed, I heard a noise out in the backyard. And I just couldn't understand what the noise was. It was a strange, and yet I could, and then I couldn't. And then it came, I said, it sounds like a shovel being stuck into the ground. I said, is somebody digging? You know, I mean, even at 5 years old, I knew what digging was all about. So I got out of bed and went to my bedroom window, and I could see the backyard. And I could see Aunt Tilda out in the backyard, and she was digging. And there was a large black bundle kind of off beside her. And I was kind of scared to say anything. I said, well, that's probably more grown-up games, I guess. I said, Aunt Tilda playing more games. I better not say anything. So I got on back in bed. But it seemed like Aunt Tilda stayed out there digging for hours and hours. And I finally went off to sleep. And then when I woke up the next morning, everything was kind of peaceful and quiet. Aunt Tilda had breakfast ready for me, and some people had come to the house to have breakfast with us, and there was absolutely no mention of anything that had happened that last night. So, you know, it was forgotten. It was forgotten. I went on and had a great summer in Chulaway. I went on and enjoyed myself. Nothing was ever said. I didn't understand what had happened anyway, so that was the end of it. That was it. Like I said, Uncle George came and got me at the end of the summer, and I came on back home, and I was telling my folks and my brothers and sisters all about what a great time I had had in Chulaway, and that was it. That was nothing to it. That was it. But you know, I just kept having thoughts and dreams about Aunt Tilda hitting that man and him falling to the floor like that. For years and years and years, I had thoughts and dreams about that because I just couldn't understand what it was. It was such a weird thing. It was such a weird thing that I had seen. But you know, 10 years went by, and one day when I was 15 years old, I was walking home from school, and it suddenly dawned on me. I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, oh my goodness, my Aunt Tilda killed a man, and she buried him in her backyard. Ooh, goodness gracious. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Ooh, my insides just got all twisted and knotted, and I started shaking and trembling. This is as I was walking home from school. It suddenly dawned on me. I said, oh my goodness. That's what happened that night when I was 5 years old. And I had tipped to the top of the stairs, and I heard Aunt Tilda and the man arguing, and I saw them arguing, and I saw her hit him in the chest. I said, my Aunt Tilda killed a man, and she buried him in her backyard. That's what all that digging was about. Oh, I understood. I understood now. It was 10 years later. I was 15 years old, and I understood what had happened. But I said to myself, what am I going to do? I can't go home and tell my parents a story like that. I said, what in the world can I do? Now that I realize what has happened, what in the world can I do? I said, am I foolish enough to get my own aunt thrown into jail? I said, what in the world do I do with this information? Now that I've figured things out, what do I do? So I finally came up with the idea. I said, I've got to be sure. I said, I just know I'm right, but I have got to be sure. I said, I want to see the evidence. And I said, you know what? The evidence is buried in my Aunt Tilda's backyard. She still lived at the same place where she had lived 10 years before. So I asked my mom and dad if I could go spend another summer with Aunt Tilda. I hadn't been back to see her in 10 years. And my mom and dad were happy. They said, well, sure you can. So arrangements were made for me to come spend another summer with Aunt Tilda. But oh, did I have a plan in mind. I wasn't just going down to Chulaway, South Carolina to spend the summer. I had to find out if I was right about what I was thinking. So I rode the bus to Chulaway, South Carolina this time. Yeah, I rode the bus down there, and Aunt Tilda was glad to see me. Oh, I saw some of the folks that I had seen 10 years ago. I remembered very few of them, but I did remember a few. But anyway, none of that was interesting to me. I wasn't interested in any of that. I had come back to Chulaway on a mission. I had come back to Chulaway to find the evidence to prove that my Aunt Tilda had killed a man. And I knew it was out there in her backyard. Oh, my goodness gracious. So I stayed in chewed away there that whole summer. And I did, you know, just some simple things. But my main thing was figuring out a way to dig up the backyard. Oh, I said, I got to get out there and do that. So one evening when Aunt Tilda went over to one of her friends' house, they were going over to play cards and go to a movie and all that. And Aunt Tilda told me, she said, now Henry, I might be back tonight and I might not. She said, but you're a big boy, you'll be safe, so just lock up the house and don't let anybody in, you'll be all right. I'm gonna leave you here by yourself. I said, all right, this is my chance. I'm gonna dig up the backyard. So as soon as Aunt Tilda left, I got out there and got my shovel and I started digging. Oh, but it was a lot rougher than I thought. Oh my God, I got tired real quick, but I wasn't about to quit. I dug for hours and hours and hours out there. I imagine it was probably 10, 11 o'clock at night. I said, well, it's real dark. I can't hardly see, but doggone it, I'm going to keep on digging. But son of a gun, I heard Aunt Tilda's car drive up. I said, oh my goodness, Aunt Tilda's back. I thought she was going to be gone all night. And before I could put away my shovel and get out of my hole and all that, she had come through the house and come through the back door, and she opened the back door and the light hit me and she saw me out there in the hole with the shovel, and ooh, the reaction that she gave. She said, my goodness, Henry, what are you doing? I said, oh, Aunt Tilda, I'm just out here in the backyard fooling around. She came on out. She said, fooling around? What do you mean fooling? What are you doing, boy? You digging a hole. I said, oh, Aunt Tilda. I said, I don't know. I said, I know. I said, I found a quarter. I found a quarter out here in the yard, and it was an old quarter, and I thought maybe there was a lot more of them buried out here. And so I said, I'm going to dig out here and see if I can find a lot more quarters. She said, oh, Henry, said, that's ridiculous. There's no more money out here. She said, if you found an old quarter, that's all there was. So you get out of that hole, boy, and put that dirt back in that hole. I said, ooh, I said, Aunt Tilda, I just feel that there's more money. She said, no, there's no more money out here. So you get out of that hole, boy, and fill that hole back up. And so I had to do what she said. I got out, and I put all of that dirt back in my hole and packed it down real good. And Aunt Tilda said, now you get on in that house. Henry said, my goodness gracious, you shouldn't be out here wasting your time doing something foolish like that, digging for old money. He said, there's no old money out here, boy. So you get on back in that house and get yourself some rest. I said, okay, Aunt Tilda. So that was my one and only chance that I got that whole summer to try to find the body in the backyard. Oh, gee, I came so close. I came so close. But, oh, Aunt Tilda came back and caught me out there digging and made me stop and fill in my hole. So as the summer ended, I came on back home. So for the next 2 summers, I did the same thing. I went down there those next 2 summers, hoping to get a chance to dig up the backyard. I just had to find that body that I knew was out there in that backyard. I just had to find it, but I never got my chance. I never got my chance. I mean, I was cunning and sneaky and conniving, and I told a few lies. I did everything I could to try to get Aunt Tilda to leave home for a day or 2 while I was down there so I could dig, but she wouldn't fall for any of my schemes. She wouldn't go along with any of my plans. So those were 2 summers wasted as far as I was concerned, because I was really down there to do the one thing, to try to find that body in the backyard, but I just never got my chance to dig. Aunt Tilda would not leave home. She would not leave home. So many more years went by. Yeah, many more years went by, and we all got older. Aunt Tilda got older. I got older. My mom and dad got older. Brothers and sisters got older. Yeah, many more years went by. And then I heard that Aunt Tilda was very sick. Yeah, I heard that Aunt Tilda was very sick. And one day I heard my mom and dad, they were sitting at the kitchen table talking. By this time, I was a grown man, of course, and I just happened to be visiting the house that day, and my mom and dad were sitting at the kitchen table talking. And I heard a few words that really interested me. And I came on in the kitchen and I said, Mom and Dad, you talking about Aunt Tilda? And they said, yeah, Henry, we're talking about Aunt Tilda. I heard a couple of things there. I said, you said she's real sick. And they said, yeah. I said, she's real sick. Said she's talking out of her head. I said, you mentioned something about a man? And my mom and dad looked at me real straight. They said, what do you want to know? I said, this man. I said, you mentioned something about Aunt Tilda talking out of her head about a man. I said, what is it? And they said, oh, Henry said, oh, the boy says it's all crazy talk. Says she talking about she killed a man. Says she talking about she killed a man a long time ago. And oh my goodness, this was my chance. I just had to tell my mom and dad. I said, Mom and Dad, it's true. And they scooted their chairs back from the table and looked. They said, what are you talking? What are you? I said, it's true. I said, it's true. I said, Aunt Tilda might be sick, but she's not crazy and she's not talking out of her head. I said, she killed a man. I said, the summer that I went down there when I was 5 years old, I said, she killed a man in her living room and then she buried him in the backyard. I said, oh my goodness gracious, it's true. And my mom and dad looked at me like I was crazy, like I was just totally out of my mind. It took me a good 30 minutes to convince them. I said, oh no, I'm not lying. I said, I'm not making this up. I said, the summer that I was 5 years old, I said, you remember Uncle George took me down to Chula Way? I said, that's the summer that Aunt Tilda killed a man. I said, I saw it. I said, I didn't understand what had happened when I saw it. I said, but yes, she killed a man right there in her living room, and then she buried him in the backyard. And yeah, like I said, it took me about 30 minutes or more to finally convince my mom and dad that I was telling the truth. They said she said the man's name is Rayford Coldecker. I said, I never knew what his name was or anything. I said, but oh yeah, she's not lying. And so my Aunt Tilda died. My Aunt Tilda died, and we all went down to the funeral. And, you know, naturally she had a real nice funeral and everything. And then a lot of people had heard the story. They had heard her deathbed confession about killing a man. Even the law in Chula Way had heard about it. The sheriff came to the house while all of us relatives were down there, and he said he just wanted to talk, and he said that word had gotten to him about Aunt Tilda's deathbed confession about killing a man named Rayford Coldecker. And so I spoke up. I said, well, she's gone now. I said, no harm can come to her, so I just told the sheriff what I knew. I said, yeah. I said, the summer that I was 5 years old and I spent down here with my Aunt Tilda, I said, I saw the killing. I said, I was too young to realize what had happened. I said, but I saw the killing. And so several days later, there was a digging in the backyard. Authorities dug up the backyard, and they found the skeleton of Rayford Coldecker. Oh, man. Oh, gee. Oh, gee. Oh, well, like I said, that was it, but there was nothing to be done, you know. My aunt was dead, and obviously Rayford Coldecker was dead, too. So my family has to live with this, you know. My family has to live with this ugly stigma that our Aunt Tilda killed a man. Oh, my goodness. I still think about that almost every day. It just doesn't go away. It never goes away. My aunt that I loved so much, Aunt Tilda, the thought that she killed a man, it never goes away. I think about it every day, and I wish I could forget it. But I know I'll think about it the rest of my life. Aunt Tilda. Oh, my goodness gracious. Oh, why do these things happen? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I will have this in my mind the rest of my life. The fact that my Aunt Tilda killed a man. And I saw it. Oh, brother. Aunt Aunt Tilda, wherever you are, I forgive you. You're still the aunt that I love. What you did had nothing to do with me. I forgive you, if that means anything. Oh, my goodness. I still love you, Aunt Tilda. I still love you. I still love you. I'm not the one to punish you for your sin. I still love you, Aunt Tilda. I still love you.